I'm telling you, live your best life, but get there in a way that's sustainable. Because again, going back to those NFL players, I've seen them at the best parties, the best cars, the best homes, watching them at home, cheering for them. It's a super high. But then what happens is inevitably they get a little slower, they get injured, they get cut, and all of that goes away. And it's a huge transition for them. It's very depressing when they're not the man anymore. When you add bankruptcy on top of that, it becomes suicidal to a lot of people. And so the average person really isn't that different.
What it is, Brad Lee back again with another episode of Dropping Bombs. Today in the studio, folks, I got a real treat for you, especially if you like money. My man, Rob Luna's in the house.
What's up, Brad? Thanks for having me, man.
Dude, thanks for coming. Listen, folks, if you guys don't know Rob Luna, you can find him right now at Luna Rob, isn't it?
The Luna Rob.
The Luna Rob on Instagram. Go check him out. Give him a follow. The dude is basically a genius wealth manager. You've been doing this for what, 25 years?
Yeah, I can go on 26 now.
25 years as a wealth manager for ultra high net worth individuals. Some you've definitely heard of. He is the founder of the Rob Luna Wealth Academy, where he teaches people literally how to do what the big wigs are doing and what the big wigs know about investing. Both of which offer cheap and accessible financial education and guidance. You're doing that as almost a philanthropy thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty affordable. I mean, that was my way to pretty much promote financial literacy, Brad. And like, look, I went to business school. A lot of people did. And there's really about 2 or 3 classes that are worth anything from that. It's really the 25 years of experience where I learned a lot. So what I try to do is take all the good stuff out of an MBA, my experience, package that and educate people so they can make those decisions themselves.
Yeah. And you spent 3 years at Wharton as a fellow.
Yeah, as a fellow.
What is a fellow?
Yeah, basically what you do is you work with some of the senior professors there, helping them with the curriculum. You go out and talk to business leaders. I spent time with Jim Senegal, outgoing CEO of Costco, Google, all those things where they're basically trying to update their curriculum. The problem, quite honestly, today with all these business schools, and when I was at Wharton, the professors are so frustrated because you see what's happening today. You can go to YouTube. All this information is accessible in real time. The bureaucracy, the politics around academic institutions right now, for them to be able to keep up and teach you something, it takes them about 3 to 4 years to get that in their curriculum. By that time, it's gone. For example, I'm trying to learn today, how do I take what I'm doing, trying to access the masses through digital marketing, these things. I'm not going back to school to learn that. I'm reading Alex Hormozi's book. I'm talking to people who are actually out there doing. I believe in education fully. However, the way I think you need to do it today is a little bit different than the way I did it growing up.
I was going to get into that. And folks, if you guys don't know, he's got his book coming out. When's his book drop?
October 3rd.
October 3rd, which is obviously before you're listening to this, because I'm going to drop this especially for you to make sure that everybody in the Bomb Squad understands what this book does. Close your wealth gap.
Yep.
That almost sounds close your wealth gap. I would want to open my wealth gap.
Yeah.
But what do you mean by close your wealth gap?
Well, the truth is I had no intention on writing a book. Wiley approached me at about a year ago and said, hey, we've been following what you're doing, and we like that your voice is a little bit different from everybody else out there who's talking about economics. And we've got this huge problem that's, we all hear about the wealth gap in America, where basically rich are getting richer, poor are getting poorer, and all the solutions so far to fix that are government solutions to hand people money. We all know that just disincentivizes things. So they came to me and said, well, what's your solution? And I said, financial literacy and entrepreneurism. That's the way I was able to get out of the situation that I was in. And I said, okay, so they wanted me to initially write a book about the wealth gap. I said, look, guys, if you really want to sell books, I don't think people really give too much of a crap about the problem with the wealth gap. They care about their own wealth gap. How do they get themselves from where they are today to where they want to be? So what I did is I took all my experience, didn't hold anything back, put it into the book, all the foundational information of what you need to do to put yourself on track to really achieve the things that you want financially in life.
Now, where do people get the book?
You can get it anywhere that they sell books. Most people are buying it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. It should be in all major bookstores the first week of October.
How do we pre-order it so you start out with a shit ton of orders?
You can go right to Amazon. Now, if you pre-order it, go to my website, closeyourwealthgap.com, put it in there. You actually get free access to my book club. The cool thing about that is, we're going to be sending out a newsletter, which I think will be great. But after the book's released, 1 month after you've had some time to read it, I'm going to spend a couple hours going through the book with people and really keying in on some of the key lessons of things they need to take that information and actually act on it. So it's not just sitting on their shelf.
Interesting. And if you want a free book, then join the Rob Luna Wealth Academy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He'll give you a free book, but that is an ongoing weekly call.
Yep.
Where you're basically teaching people stocks and investments and, and normally you won't mess with anybody that's got less than how much.
Yeah. I mean, really, I don't, a lot of people are asking, hey, Rob, someone came up to me at a conference. We go, hey, I got 2 million I want to put with you. I don't really want to manage anybody's money anymore. I'm kind of past that. Really what I want to do is educate the masses to be able to manage their own money. I think the truth is I've been doing this a long time, Brad. No one cares more about your money than you do. But in able to be able to good steward of that, you do have to educate yourself. And so the Wealth Academy is, yes, financial literacy, stocks, bonds, real estate, private equity investing. How do you do that like the big boys? But I also teach a lot on entrepreneurism. And it's not just me. I bring in special guests like yourself. You've been on there, people that are actually doing things. And so how do you take the foundational information that I use, but actually go out and execute on it? And so $200 a month, if you buy it a year, it's less than $2,000 a year. That's like one good community college course a year. When people do come to me, it's about $5,000 for an hour. I don't really want any of that anymore either. So if you get in there, use it. I've got some great people on my team that actually do office hours one-on-one to help people execute the information. But look, if you're thinking about going to business school, you're thinking about doing something to educate yourself, give this a try. It's going to save you a lot of money. It's going to give you real world information. And I promise you, the $2,000 you spend a year, you're going to get a good ROI on your investment.
Well, dude, I mean, that's nothing.
It's nothing. Yeah.
How much did you spend to learn everything that you're teaching?
I mean, just my classes, Wharton, UCLA, National University of Singapore, Arizona State. I've got 4 college degrees, probably about 400,000 plus the time.
See, $200 is a pretty good deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me go back though, because you didn't start out. Now, a lot of people would think, oh, this guy's freaking rich parents, MBA, going to Wharton, Lottie-Dottie, Ivy League, but you're not.
Yeah, no, I mean, some people know my story. A lot of people probably never heard of me before, but, to fast track it, I grew up super poor in Southern California. That was in the late 80s, 90s, where it was drive-by shootings every day. I lived right in the heart of a Hispanic gang environment. My brother got caught up in gang violence, was sent to prison for the rest of his life when he was 19. He's 5 years older than me. And so, I grew up in a pretty fast-paced situation. I don't know how I am, other than the grace of God, or where I'm at today. In sports, really, sports kind of kept me right on the outskirt of it. It's not like I didn't do anything bad, but sports got me into college. And really, when I got into college, I went to Arizona State for my undergrad, got out of Southern California, and the world kind of opened to me. And I said, okay, look, there's a big opportunity, but here's your opportunity to do something with your life and not screw it up. And I just kind of went all in, and the truth is I actually, my undergrad's in psychology. I thought I was going to be a child psychiatrist, but the company I was working for, putting myself through college, went out of business. And then back then, Brad, you probably know, we used to open up the newspapers to look for jobs, and it said stockbroker trainee. I was 20 years old, company called Waterhouse out of New York. And I went as an intern, got the job, and I just said, look, dude, go all in on it. And that's really what I do. I dedicate why I went and got 4 college degrees, different designations, and was able to work with some of those people. Because I said, look, if I'm going to do this, I want to be the best out there. And, it probably took me about 10 to 15 years before I had that confidence. But once I got that, I knew I was pretty much at the top. And that's when, Fox started calling and all these other people. And, look, like I said, though, Brad, the most important thing for people that are listening to this today is, and I talk a little bit about it in the book, about my story. The only reason I do that is to put away all the excuses, because everyone's got every excuse in the world of why they can't start a business, why they can't save. And the problem with that is, and I show it in the book, if you start young, it's like, hey, dude, if I can get you to put $75 a week when you're in your early 20s, by the time you're in your 50s, you got at least $1 million. The problem is they don't do that. They don't have that information. So then they're 35, 40, and they look at it and they're like, oh shit, I can't afford $2,000 a week or $2,500 a week to get there. So what do? They do nothing. They bury their head in the sand and they wind up staying broke. So the whole idea with this book, Brad, we've all said it. If I only knew then what I know now, right? If you probably said it yourself, right? So the idea is not waiting till you're 40 or 50 to get that information. My goal with this book and the things that I'm doing to make things accessible is give you that information now so you can start working. Knowledge expedited compounding over time is how you grow wealth.
So sometimes I have a hard time believing that there is a big wealth gap.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I'm jaded. I don't see the other side.
Yeah.
But like, you know, the neighborhood I live in has plenty of houses.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I'm looking around here for houses, and what used to cost a couple $100,000 is now $1 million, $1.5 million. Like for $1 million in Las Vegas anyway, especially in California.
Yeah.
$1 million doesn't get you shit.
No.
So I'm thinking, how are all these people affording these $1 million homes? I mean, when I was a kid, dude, if you lived in $1 million house, you were wealthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now $1 million house is just a regular ass house.
Yeah.
So I think, does everybody have money now? Like, where are all these poor people? I can't see them. Are they talking about people in Bangladesh or right here in the United States?
Yeah.
Because, dude, who's buying all these houses?
Well, I mean, look, Brad, I mean, I think you and I are both jaded, right? You know, I left a business where our minimum account size was 10 million. My last 2 years in the business was 25 million. The air is pretty thin up there. So I think our perspectives get jaded. You know, one thing when you talked about housing,
but who owns all these houses?
Yeah, well, you know, there's a new buyer. It's called Blackstone. It's called KKR. Before 2009, those guys weren't there. And so those guys are buying up single family homes as an institutional asset class that they never were doing before then. And because of COVID, just like everything else, things shut down. So we've got limited supply right now. We've got a big tons of institutional buyers that were never there before. And, you know, we did also have, you know, unemployment in the country has been pretty decent. The millennial generation, which is home buying age now, largest in American history, larger than the baby boomers, are also buying homes at the same time. So I think housing, a lot of people have been actually looking and talking about it crashing for the last year and a half. That hasn't happened. You're actually, if you look at the statistics, housing prices are starting to tick back up again because you have limited supply, a lot of demand. Now, commercial real estate, though, is the opposite of that. Because you talk about big office space, no one's taking big office space anymore. You've got all this supply that's on the market right now, much less demand. So commercial is going down, but residential is pretty strong right now. But, you know, to the bigger point of the wealth gap, I think we're both a little bit jaded. When you look at the average American out there, though, they're not doing the things that you and I are doing. And the problem is, I think they want to, or they wanted to at one time. But over time, being around the wrong crowd, listening to the wrong things, they've developed this mindset of scarcity to where they've settled for some second class version of themselves. And that's what, you know, I try to do in the book is like, Brad, I've been working with people worth 25 million. I've worked with 2 billionaires. And I can tell you in terms of the definition of wealth, for one person, it might be a Ferrari and a $25,000 house. For the other person, it might be a farm and an F-250 truck. Like, I don't really care what that is. And I don't think there's any one definition is other than, what is it that you want to do in life? 100%. What is it, what you want to do? Where do you want to eat? Where do you want to shop? Where do you want to live? What do you want to drive? Whatever that is, figure that out, but don't settle for anything less and drive to that. But most people don't do that. You know, their parents tell them. That's, you know, you've got kids, Brad, beautiful, beautiful kids. You know, the worst thing a parent could do is put limiting beliefs on their kid. And that's the one thing a lot of people say, Rob, like, you grew up in this shitty situation. Your parents weren't there. No one was, you know, watching you. But yeah, at least no one was telling me what I couldn't do. So to me, foolishly enough, sky was the limit. And that's kind of where it allowed me to get to where I'm at today.
Mm. So how come your brother went the other way? What makes you, like, in other words, if you think two brothers, same environment, one went on to success and one went on to prison. Why? Yeah. Why didn't he think like you thought?
Yeah, I don't, you know, the truthful answer is I don't know. And I could tell you, having worked with several wealthy families over the last 25 years, that way wealthier than me, that have 2, 3, 4 kids, it's really the same situation. You've got some of them that go and get PhDs, become doctors, and you have some of them that are strung out in drugs that the parents are still trying to take care of. If I knew that answer, I would share it with the audience. I don't really know. I think a lot of it's just luck.
Luck and timing.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's mindset.
Yeah.
Because again, I mean, I don't know where you form your mindset, but when people, you know, with a positive outlook, you know, get put in bad situations, they always find their way out.
Yeah.
Like, again, dude, you know my story. I didn't grow up poor, like poor.
Right.
I wish I could, you know, tell the horror stories of growing up poor.
Yeah.
I joke with people. I say, you know, my dad couldn't afford Christmas presents one year, so he cut a hole in my pocket so I'd have something to play with. But that's just getting people laugh. Realistically, I don't remember being so poor we couldn't eat.
Yeah.
I don't remember being so poor we didn't get clothes. You know, we had cars, we had a house, like, you know, we got Christmas presents most years. Like, you know, to me, that was normal.
Yeah.
And to me, that is normal. Because if you think about the 1%, well, 1% of the United States would be what? Let's go. 10% would be about 34 million. So 1% would be 3.4 million. 4 million people in the United States, dude. And they're all, they got all the money. Everybody else is broke, supposedly.
Yeah.
Well, do they all live in my neighborhood? Because, dude, there's just one neighborhood in Las Vegas. There's tons of wealthy neighborhoods in Las Vegas. There's tons of them in Nashville. Yeah. I've been in your neighborhood in Nashville, dude. Everybody's in my neighborhood and your neighborhood. Yeah. Because 3.4 million people, that's not a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know, is that the media trying to create divide again? Or are there more than 1% out there that are doing well? Because to me, dude, it makes no sense how all these houses are so much money and people are buying them. People own them.
Yeah.
Now, if one entity's buying them all, like, is it BlackRock or Blackstone?
It's so Blackstone, KKR, there's a lot of smaller startups.
What's the big, huge?
Blackstone.
I think.
Yeah. So that's BlackRock, but BlackRock's.
I heard BlackRock, though, is now buying residential homes and they're never going to sell them, which is why the prices are still going up.
Right. Because as an institutional investor, I've worked with a lot of endowment funds, college endowment funds. What's their time frame? Well, it's perpetuity, right? Because they're constantly building new buildings. They have new students coming in. If you're BlackRock, you're always going to have new investors. But an individual, our timeline is limited. We're not going to live past 100. Hopefully we get there. So yeah, when you start thinking about the investment thesis for those guys, they don't really care about a 10, 15% decline. If it happens and they're hoping for it, I'm talking to these guys, they're going to buy more. And so when you start, and that's one of the challenges, I think, in finance, a lot of people want to look at these 50, 100-year charts in anything. Look, the world has changed so much in the last 3 years, let alone 10 years or 20 years. So if you're still looking at the playbook of what people did 23 years ago in real estate or whatever it is, and you think it's going to be the same running forward, that's a fallacy. Things have changed, and the speed of change with AI, all these things that are coming out right now going forward is going to be even worse. And that in particular is when you look at the future of education, is why it's going to have to do a huge change, paradigm shift in their thinking about how they deliver that. The idea, we don't teach online, you got to come to us. And not only that, you got to stay on campus for the first year. Like, all that BS is going to be gone. Harvard not offering an online MBA, that's going to be gone. I don't care who you are.
So if you're 20 years old, how much should you be putting away? If you're 30 years old, how much you need to be putting away? 40 and 50.
Yeah. So I wish I had that all in my head. I've got it all outlined for you in the book.
You should figure that shit out.
Yeah, you've got it all outlined in the book. But basically, if you're 20 years old and you put about $100 away, stick it into an S&P fund that's done about 9 to 10%, any S&P fund that's cheap over there, within 30 years, so by the time you're 50 years old, you'll have about $1.2 million. And so do you
think in 30 years that 1.2 will be worth something?
It won't be worth as much. And that also is a little bit frustrating to people. And that's another excuse. Oh, there's going to be inflation, or there's going to be this. Well, the average person, 56% of people can't meet $1,000 emergency out of their savings. Most people retire with $36,000. So a lot of people,
how?
It's crazy. And that's the other thing, Brad, I think that people don't realize. They look at all this stuff, nice house, nice cars. And as I told you, like, I'm the guy who gets to see the cover pulled off, right? Pulled back and see what's really going on. When you look at this stuff, especially on social media, it tells you nothing about how much somebody is worth. It tells you everything about how much somebody spends. And what people do, and especially I think the bad thing about social media is once you portray or present some image, a lot of people become victim to that, because unless you can keep that up, and we all know there's going to be recessions. We all know your business, no matter how good it is not going to grow 50 or 100% every year. But what people do is the last thing to go is the appearance on Instagram, right? If they're business owners, they get rid of their employees first. And then what do they start doing? Oh, they might be behind on their rent payments on their office. And then what do? They don't pay their taxes. They start doing all these things. So a lot of people can have this charade charade go on for 2, 3, 4 years. And what they hope is kind of like a Ponzi scheme is that eventually things will turn around, right? Eventually, like they'll be behind in their taxes, they'll be behind on other things, but things turn around quick enough, they're going to be able to get themselves back there. But we all know that it doesn't always work that way. And that's one of the challenges I think today. I think we're all jaded looking at social media that everyone's flying in private jets. Everyone's got Bentleys and Rolls Royces and Ferraris and Lamborghinis and all this stuff. The reality is they may have that, but they might really not be able to afford that. And I think you're starting to see it. People just in the last year, 2 years, companies filing bankruptcy. And I believe personally, we're just at the forefront of what's to come on that.
Yeah. Well, when I think back, because I've never been trained formally, especially with financial literacy, but I've learned by paying attention and looking around. And the thing that I wish someone would have told me a long time ago, because I used to think, when you got the houses and the trips and the cars and the jets and the money, your income is paying for that.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm like, okay, so how do I make a bunch of income?
Yeah.
And then when I started making a bunch of income, I'm like, okay, cool. Now I can get the cars. Now I can get the houses.
Right.
Now I can get this shit. And then you start spending it. And then you realize, like, if your income stops, you're done.
Yep.
So you're only, I call it, broke at another level.
Yep.
If someone would have told me, listen, Brad, you take that money, act like you're not making it, and you get rid of it into these investments, eventually that cash flow will catch up. And now you do have that revenue coming in regardless of whether you work or not. And now you can have all those things.
Yep.
Nobody told me that. So I'm like freaking way behind.
And that's exactly it, Brad. And I learned that, the good thing about, I've been trained in financial literacy, economics and finance and all those things. But again, I learned most from mistakes that some of my clients made, some of the good things that they did. I work with a lot of professional athletes, in particular, NFL players. So those are the ones that you see it that I had to get to early and say, hey, look, dude, in the next year, 2 years, you're going to make 90% of your lifetime earnings. So I see all this money coming in and you're looking at $20, $30 million in your bank account and you think you have that. So when you see the $5 million house or you see this car, you're like, oh, okay, I'm still going to have that. The problem is what you don't realize is when you spend that money, the income stops and you've only got 3 to 4 million. Oh, I still got 3 to 4 million. But if you take 5%, which is kind of a rule of thumb on the money you have saved. So if you got 3 or 4 million, that's $150,000 to $200,000 a year pre-tax. Like they were not making that kind of money to be able to sustain that lifestyle. So what you said is really what I try to get people to understand and solve for. And you said also, you're just broke at a different level. It's kind of the worst. You kind of become a slave to the paycheck or whatever it is you're doing. So if you think about that, what I was saying on social media, a lot of people, especially influencers these days, they're making tons and tons of cash. And if you're making that cash based off of some persona that you created, well, you can't stop doing that. You have to continue to fuel that. But the problem is, like these professional athletes, what they're not realizing is that someday they're not going to be as good looking. Someday they're not going to have the 6-pack abs, or they might not be able to afford this Ferrari or these crazy $200,000, $300,000 trips that they're taking. Or lo and behold, people just aren't on Instagram anymore. People don't give a shit about influencers anymore. And unless you have some core value that you can change people's lives with, without that, it's going to be gone. So what I'm trying to tell people is exactly what you said. And look, Brad, I like nice stuff. I have nice stuff, but I don't ever want to be a victim to it. I bought my first Ferrari after I sold my first business. I was 40 something years old. I made my first million in finance at, 29, 30 years of age. So technically I could have afforded it through cash flow. I could have made the payments, but I didn't have anything saved. I wanted to make sure when I bought that if anything happened, I didn't get another client, I couldn't get another deal, whatever it was, that I could still put my head down at night. No one's going to take my shit away from me. That's me. I'm not saying that everybody has to do that. But again, I'm not Dave Ramsey. I'm not telling you live on cat food, live in a mobile home. I'm telling you live your best life, but get there in a way that's sustainable. Because again, going back to those NFL players, I've seen them at the best parties, the best cars, the best homes. They get out there on the field on Sunday, like everyone's hundreds of thousands of people watching them at home, cheering for them. It's a super high. But then what happens is inevitably they get a little slower. They get injured. They get cut. And all of that goes away. And it's a huge transition for them. It's very depressing when they're not the man anymore. When you add bankruptcy on top of that, it becomes suicidal to a lot of people. And so the average person really isn't that different. So all I'm trying to do is teach people from my lessons is, go for that, live that life. But figure out what is the amount of money I need to save to where the passive income from dividends, rent, whatever it is that you like comes in consistently on a monthly basis that could afford whatever that is to where you don't have to work. I call that work optional. And all this is numbers based. That's why I love math. It's all numbers based. So if you tell me what your lifestyle costs, I'll tell you exactly how much you need to save. We'll see what you have right now and put you on a plan to get there. Most people don't have that clarity or focus, and they run around chasing their tail and they never know where they're going. So how do you even invest if you don't know where you're trying to go?
Hey, you want to spend an hour a week with me helping you become a business badass? Well, check out my group in the link below. What's the safest investments? Because, I could say, okay, I'm going to give it all to investing and then lose it investing too.
Yeah. You can, but if you do it right, you won't.
Yeah. So what's right?
Yeah. So I think, look, first of all, for everyone, it's a little bit different. If you're not going to touch that money for 20 years, it's different if you're going to touch it in 20. So, and what do I mean by that? Well, if you can invest in stocks for 10 years, any 10-year period, you're going to do good. I mean, high quality stocks.
Or what's the average in 10-year return?
Yeah, you're going to get about 10%. Right. And so if you're trying to put money away and grow it and you're not taking that money out, you want to focus on higher returns, 10, 11%. Now, the opposite is, okay, now you're not working or you're working part-time and you're pulling money to support yourself. Well, you can't have the ups and downs of the stock market, or you can't put it in real estate hoping to flip it because that might not work. So now what you need to count on is consistent, steady income. The great thing about that is the safe investments today. So everyone's complaining about interest rates going up. To get a mortgage is 7.5% right now. The Fed's slowing things down. Okay, yeah. The cool thing about that, though, is the people that want to save and don't want to take a lot of risk in stocks or in real estate or whatever it is, dude, you can get 5.5% from a money market account. So remember what I said, you could think about 5% off of every dollar that you put away. So if you got $1 million, that's 50,000 in income. Dude, today you're getting 55,000 in income without taking any risk. And you can get some good high quality bonds at 7-8%. You can,
but 55,000 ain't buying Ferraris.
It's not buying a Ferrari. No.
See, so that's where people get it wrong. They get that $1 million. They don't put it away. They go buy the Ferrari. The Ferrari depreciates. They need insurance. They're living the life. The $1 million dwindles away.
Yeah.
And now, even though they may own the Ferrari, the upkeep and the maintenance.
That's exactly it.
Now they're screwed.
That's exactly it. So if you've got a $300,000 lifestyle, what do you need to have? You need to have about 5.5 to 6 million. So, look, if you
be safe,
right?
Which again, 5 million, dude, that's a chunk of change.
Take some time. Yeah, but it's doable. I've had people do that on $200,000 salaries, consistently putting money away.
It's got to be consistent and over a period of time. So if I sold, let's say, Lightspeed, and what's the minimum amount someone would need? Now, for me, $300,000 a year is not paying my shit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you and see, that's another thing. So most of the client, I work with a lot of professional athletes, mostly entrepreneurs though, and all the professional athletes became entrepreneurs because they didn't want to work at Home Depot, obviously. So that's another thing that I talk about. What I teach in my academy is if you come from nothing like I did, you did, it's hard to save your way or invest your money to real wealth. I also can't live off of $300,000 a year. So I need to make more than that. The most money I've ever made has been from the businesses that I've built and sold either all or part of. And so what you need to do is learn, okay, if you don't have someone that's going to give you money, how do I build enterprise value to where I could sell all or part of my business? And then, maybe you're building up that 401k or whatever. You're putting 20, 30 grand away and you got a couple $1 million, but how do you drop another 20 million in? How do you drop another 15 million in? You build a business and you sell that business. And then it's like, okay, I got 20, 30 million. Now you're talking about something real. For me, I know for you, my biggest, most successful assets have always been the businesses I built. And that's why I think it's two-pronged approach to solving these problems that we're talking about is financial literacy. Why? Because you're a great entrepreneur. You could sell, you could always make money. But look, what happens if you, God forbid, had a stroke or something and you couldn't do that? Now, you're making, and you've been making for a long time, smart financial decisions now, but what if that happened earlier in your career? You'd be screwed, right? So the financial literacy component is how do you recognize what you just said, that, okay, early on, I need to know what to do with that money that I'm making and building from my business, because if something happens to that business, I need to be able to rely on that. But the other component is you have to know how to build a business. And that's either one or two things. You can be an entrepreneur. We're just talking to a gentleman where you can go work for a larger organization. But if you want equity, you want to be part of that, dude, you still need to think like an entrepreneur to be able to add value, bring in business customers. You can't just plug in anymore to a business as a janitor like you did at Microsoft 20, 30 years ago. Or you need to start a business and start that business in a way, though, just like I said with financial planning, know where you're going. Understand if I'm going to build a business, Lightspeed, HVAC company, what does it look like to sell for 20, 30 million, right? Because if I'm going to sell for 20, 30 million, I'm just going to go look at private equity companies, exit strategies that are being done today. What did that business look like? I'll see what I'm building or what I have today. I'll reverse engineer that to build out over the next 8 to 10 years and sell to those guys. It's really all, it's not that I'm not that smart of a guy. I just watch what people are doing and then I'm consistent about what you need to do to be successful. It's about discipline. And it's about not making excuses.
And it's about delayed gratification.
Absolutely.
Because if someone gave me $50 million a long time ago, I would have spent $50 million and I would have been looking rich as shit.
Yeah.
Everyone would have said, oh, Brad made it. But once you buy the houses and all that, the upkeep on those houses, just some of the HOA fees, the taxes.
Dude, we just bought a new house out in Nashville. I mean, we've only been there like 5-6 months. I've already probably dropped 40 grand on HVAC stuff. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Now imagine if you blew all your money buying all that nice shit. It's all paid for. People think, well, it's all paid for. Yeah. Dude, you still got taxes. You still owe.
Yep.
You know, there's an ongoing suck that happens. And if you buy, if you gave me 50 million, I went and spent it, and I got the cars and I got the houses and I got everything. I didn't invest it. I spent it.
Yeah.
I can't afford now to sustain that shit. So what you see is, oh, this guy's living. And then all of a sudden I sold that house. Why? Mm-hmm. Well, because I had to pay for that house and that house. And then pretty soon I sold that house. And now you dwindle right down to nothing.
Yep.
Where if you'd just taken that 50 million and acted like you didn't have it, and you're only getting 5%. Well, now you got 2.5 million a year coming in. And by the way, compared to 50, that's nothing, but 2.5 million, dude. A fool could live.
Yeah, for sure.
Decently.
Yeah.
Now, again, you may not be running around in these, ridiculous, extravagant things.
Yeah.
But that's delayed gratification, because if you can put that 50, like I got it, but I can't have the houses. I can't have the cars.
Yeah.
You put it away, you let that stack up, starts to compound in 10 or 15 years. Now I can have all the shit I wanted. And most people won't do that. They will get the 50 and they will start living the second they get it. And that's why it goes away.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So
I didn't even get an MBA.
But you figure, one of the things I'll say also, the first thing I did with my business when I got my MBA the last year was about private equity, valuing your business, selling your business. I'm like, this is cool. The one thing about my MBA, I was 38 when I went back and did it. I was already running my business for about 11 years. So way different than the earlier education that I did, because look, I was taking time out of my business. I was making over $1 million when I went back to school. But I was going back to school because everyone's telling me, like, scale your business, dude. I didn't know what that meant. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to go back to to do this MBA and take my business into the classroom and get information of what does that mean. So I went through all these private equity courses. The first thing I did, and I wasn't ready when I got done, is I put my business up for sale and I started getting offers from people. And that's how I really learned, okay, shit, you're not doing this right, or you're doing this right. So the thing, you might not have an MBA, but you've got several years of real life practice and learning and understanding what you need to do, which is more valuable. However, what I would tell you is, if you had a lot of the information that you had and you've obtained now, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you'd probably be worth twice of what you are today. And so that's all I'm trying to do, Brad, is I'm trying to tell people, start that Lightspeed business. And you were, a leader very early on in online education, right? Start that, but simultaneously educate yourself of how do you make sure that on the personal finance side, you're also doing that. Because that's another thing. When I sold my last business, Brad, they offered me, my first offer was about half of what I ultimately sold for. Why I didn't sell it wasn't that I didn't think it was worth it. I actually thought the first offer was probably truer to what it should have been. The reason I got a bigger offer was for a lot of other reasons, but I didn't sell it because I knew when I cashed out what that meant in terms of cash flow that would come to me, and I couldn't live off of it. But if I didn't have that personal finance knowledge, I might have sold because the numbers sounded pretty good. I never had that much money in my bank at one account, and that's what happens. And you hit on it earlier. People get these businesses, like you have Lightspeed, all these different businesses. The cash flow that's coming in is great cash flow. But when you turn around and sell that, and you need to take that multiple and turn it into that 5% that I talked about, a lot of people sell and come to me and say, okay, Rob, I got this pile of cash. What do I do with this? Okay, we invest it. Here, Mr. Whatever is what you're going to get, $380,000 a year. What? I was making 1.8 million. How am I going to live off 380,000? Well, you probably should have figured out what that multiple was prior. And that's what people are most shocked about when they sell a business. Yeah, they get this big sum of money in their account, but you alluded to it earlier. You can't just spend that down to zero. You have to get a rate of return, or you need to die really young, or it's not going to work out. So that's what people need to think about. That's what I'm trying to teach them, Brad, is what is your number? Like, I knew at a very early age how much money I need. It goes up because of inflation, but what is that? And how do I build a business? Yeah, I'm going to invest. And I've been investing since I'm 20 years old. But the only thing that really got to me to where I'm at is these big chunks of money that I've gotten off of businesses that I sold. And so that's what I'm trying to teach people how to do it.
What if you're with somebody that overspends?
Yeah, well, that's a problem, right? I mean, because if you're married, you both need to be on the same path.
But there's a lot of people, dudes out there where their wives, they don't realize that they're not as financially secure as they think, and they spend.
It's scary. It's scary. Again, as somebody who knows how the sausage is made, it's really scary what's going on out there. A lot of people don't realize it, because especially like, I just got on social media 3 years ago. And so I've been watching all this stuff, and what people see and believe is not the reality. I know the reality.
And the reality is eventually that's just going to come crashing down.
Come crashing down. And it's going to be sad, but it's going to be a good lesson for a lot of people. And I think you're already seeing it, right? I think you're already starting to see it, where people just aren't buying the bullshit anymore. Like, people want authenticity. People want, and it's one of the things, like, you live a great lifestyle. I live a great lifestyle. When I first got on social media, and just like I did in the book, my whole thing was, okay, show people that you're doing successful, because unless you do that, they're not going to listen to you. And then I realized, like, yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because then it's going to set false criteria, and people are going to think, oh, Rob, you had that Ferrari. No, I got that when I was 40 something years old, dude. I was driving, first car was like a 10, because I was a stockbroker, it was like a 10-year-old BMW, just so I had something. And so, I think today, look, I think for most people, close your eyes and ears. Yeah, it's great to watch all these things on social media, whatever it is, but just figure out what's important to you in your life. Don't let that be influenced by anyone else's idea of what success is. Quantify that. So if that's 5 million you need to save, or 3 million, or however much money you need to make, and then start finding the right people to help guide you along the path to get you to where you're going. Turn off all the other noise.
What do you think the equation or the formula is for, like, income? So let's say somebody's making 10 grand a month.
Yeah.
How much should they be investing out of that, to where, hey, adjust your lifestyle if you have to, but you should be putting away X percent?
Yeah. So I've got a rule I talk about in the book, and it's actually a lot less than what most people will tell you. It's 60, 30, 10. So if you're starting out early, I say spend 60% on your core expenses, your housing, your health insurance, your food, the shit that you can't live without. And then 30% on going on vacations, your car payments, the things that I call your optional expenses. And then 10% of your money should go to savings. And I'm pretty good at math. I've done the math. If you start doing that early enough, by the time you're 59, 60, you'll have enough money to replace your income. Now, can you save 14% or 20%? Yeah, but most people don't even save 2%. So if you just start putting 10% away in your 30s, you'll get there. In my book, I show case studies. So if you're 40 and you didn't do it, I'll show you how to get back on track. We've got free calculators that you could apply to yourself. The thing is, don't bury your head in the sand. The first thing I talk about in there is face the reality of where you're at. Because unless you do that and understand where you're going, you're not going to have the right roadmap. So you got to do that. And you got to stop making the stupid excuses. Oh, I'm going to die young, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to work forever. Yeah, that'd be great. But your mental aptitude is going to change. You're not going to be as healthy. You can't do that. You need to come up with a plan B.
What if you find somebody that's like 55, 60 years old and they already done fucked up?
Yeah.
Now what do they do? What would be your advice be to them?
Yeah, I've got that in the book. I mean, for people like that, well, first of all, I mean, the reality is your quality of life isn't going to be as good as someone who made decisions that were good earlier. And that's just the thing, right? It's just that's the reality. So what do those people usually do? They get online, they go look for the get rich quick schemes, the cryptocurrency, or flip this, or trust deeds, or whatever it is. Those are the people at most risk that I've seen before. Those are the people that believe 44% annualized rates of return, or true. So what do most of those people do? They try to take the 100 grand that they saved or the 200 grand that they saved that is not nearly enough at 60 years old or where they should be. They put it into some get rich quick scheme and they wind up losing it all. And then they're destined to live in the back bedroom with their son or their daughter or whatever it is. So again, reality is you're going to have to make some changes, but the world still doesn't come to an end. And the thing about entrepreneurs, there's a lot of entrepreneurs today. They're starting new businesses, 45, 50, 60 isn't what it used to be. And you can work at home online and create a good, decent income.
That's what I'd tell them.
Yeah.
Start a business. Because when you start a business, if you're doing that right, because a lot of people aren't even doing that right. They build a job is what they build.
Yeah.
But anyway, dude, sounds like all the answers are right there in that book.
There.
Close your wealth gap. Close your wealth gap. Now, you said they wanted this to be called something else?
Closing the wealth gap. Well, in the small print is financial lessons to upgrade your life. That's worked in there.
Now, if someone applies everything in this book, earlier the better. But if someone applies it and they start applying it, this is like 25 years worth of sound shit.
It's great stuff. I mean, the truth is, Brad, I mean, financial literacy still is not being taught in schools. People don't know what the hell is going on.
I wonder why that is.
Well, the truth is most teachers don't get it. They haven't been educated on themselves. So how are they going to teach it and then put that across the country into every school? It's not going to happen probably in our lifetime. But if you're a parent, if you start putting your kid, I show you, hey, if you could start putting your kid on payroll when they're 12, 13 years old, start a Roth IRA for them, they're a millionaire by the time they're in their early 40s. Now, billionaires, no. But look, the truth is, if we can get everyone to do this stuff in their 20s, and it's only about $100 and something a week, everybody will have at least $1 million in their early 50s. Is that getting them Ferraris and everything? No, but it's solving this problem that everyone's talking about. It's a start. And then the other thing is winning begets more winning. Once you start doing that and you're seeing it grow, you're going to want to put a little bit more money away. Once you start a business and you start making money, you want to start working a little bit harder in that business. So, the key is, again, compounding, and how do we get people to just start doing the right activity at an earlier age?
Folks, there you have it. Folks, Rob Luna's book, Close Your Wealth Gap. Listen, go follow the dude, the Luna Rob.
Rob Luna was taken.
Do you have all the other channels or no? Do you have a YouTube channel?
I do. Yeah, I'm not doing as much. I'm going to start.
You got to get
more.
a YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn.
Mostly Twitter and Instagram right now.
Twitter and Instagram, the Luna Rob. Go find him. Go get his book for me. Okay. How can the Bomb Squad support you other than getting your book?
Yeah, you can check out my Wealth Academy. Go to robluna.com. Veterans always get a big discount also, so don't just pay full price. Email us. We'll give you a big discount. But yeah, go to robluna.com and we've got it all in there.
Appreciate you coming in, buddy.
Thanks, man. Appreciate
Folks, as always, get rich and keep it real.
I believe that I am worth it. And that's why things are opening up. You need to believe you're worth more than you do today. You need to believe that you actually deserve what it is you want. That's the only reason you don't have it currently.